Hi, I'm Paul Duchesne. Welcome to Mama Paul's video podcast. Today is a Thursday, September the 30th, 2021, and I'm doing some different things today all day long. I'm doing maybe a 5 or 10 minute sort of a preview or an introduction to a few of the stories which I find interesting. I hope you find them interesting also. And my involvement with AT&T is sort of one of them. I worked for AT&T for 10 years. I really liked my job. I did not like the company. I liked what I did. I didn't like the people who were directing things. It was during this time that I found out that major companies are not democratic in any form. I found out that lying, cheating, and stealing were a way of life in the company. I watched people dragged out with bleeding ulcers. I watched somebody go bald in a day. I watched somebody go gray in a day. I saw all sorts of things happening around me. And eventually I transferred from New York City out to California. And after 2 years in California, I quit writing a 17-page letter of resignation. I was one of the few people who ever quit AT&T and actually collected unemployment. I proved that their policies were physically making me sick, which they were. And at the end of the day, I left AT&T, but I kept my connection. I had a really good friend who worked there. My best friend worked there. So in spite of the fact that I was on the opposite coast, we would be on the phone regularly. And I was aware of AT&T's involvement in their own breakup, which led to the deregulation of AT&T, which led to a failure in New York City, a communication failure that wound up shutting down the New York Stock Exchange and all 3 airports in the metropolitan area one afternoon in the 90s. And this was all a result of deregulation. And that's sort of what I'm going to talk about. So that's what the whole story is about. The whole story is about my time at AT&T, the kind of things that were going on that would you wouldn't want to see them going on in an ethical company. Let's face it. And AT&T wound up breaking themselves up. Now they're more powerful than before the breakup. They have regrouped themselves. Remember those 7 baby bells? Where are they? Those 7 baby bells are all back with Ma Bell. When I worked at AT&T, there was a little screwdriver, a 610B screwdriver, and if you went to the open market and went to buy it at a hardware store, you would have spent a dime or a quarter back in the 60s. Well, AT&T was paying over $2 for this, and they bookkeeped it from Western Electric, which they owned. That's one of the ways they inflated the base that they would then submit to the regulators to get the rates where they wanted them to be. After deregulation, they didn't have to do that so much. So they were confined under the regulatory periods for a long time. They were considered a legalized monopoly, which is what they were. And the idea was to provide universal service for everybody and keep the cost low. Well, they provided the service, but they certainly didn't keep the cost low, I'll tell you that. And over time, after the breakup, they wound up spreading themselves out. Then they wound up buying themselves back. Now they're back to where they were, and they own HBO and Warner Brothers, if I'm not mistaken, at this point in time. So AT&T is a big bad boy in my life. There were 3 things in my life that sort of affected me. As I was growing up, the family got to be really weird, to say the least. I joined the Air Force. I found out that the corruption within the Air Force was astonishing. When I was finishing up high school, I was in Catholic schools for 12 years, Catholic grammar school, Catholic high school. And as I got to be a sophomore, junior, senior, I started to think a little bit more. Nothing was making sense within the hierarchy of the church. A lot of the doctrines were not making sense. The whole thing was sort of like living in an Alice in Wonderland world. And when you would ask people questions, you wouldn't get straight answers. You would, you have to accept it on faith. Well, if it doesn't make any sense, and it doesn't seem to be it doesn't make sense. What are you going to do? And things didn't make sense. So I sort of early on got disillusioned with religion. I got disillusioned with the service. I got disillusioned with my family life. And ultimately, I had not really, I wasn't really anxious to go work for a big company, but it became what happened. And my mother really would have liked me to get a job at a big company, which I did, and it turned out to be an interesting aspect of my life, leading to AT&T. So I got disillusioned with religion. I got disillusioned with the service. I got disillusioned with business. What else is there left? The government already so I've been disillusioned by the government's activities for a long time. So this was a little bit on AT&T, and I've strayed a little bit into the overall disillusionment issue that I've got. Peace, patience, persistence. I'll see you as soon as I can.